English to Success. Your Path to Success.
Chapter 1: The Birth of India. India, one of the oldest and most culturally rich countries in the world, has a history that stretches back over thousands of years. It is home to one of the earliest civilizations, the Indus Valley Civilization, which existed around 2500 BCE in what is now modern-day Pakistan and northwest India. This civilization was known for its advanced urban planning, well-designed cities like Mohenjo-daro and Harappa, and its intricate system of trade and agriculture. The Indus Valley people were one of the first to cultivate crops like wheat, barley, and cotton, and use mathematical knowledge to measure land. Aryan influence and Vedic period. Around 1500 BCE, a group of nomadic people known as the Aryans entered the Indian subcontinent. Their arrival marked the beginning of the Vedic period, during which Hinduism began to take shape. The Vedas, ancient religious texts, were composed during this time and remain a cornerstone of Hindu thought. The Vedic culture introduced rituals, yajnas, sacrifices, and a social structure known as the Varna system, which divided people into four main classes: Brahmins, priests; Kshatriyas, warriors; Vaishyas, traders; and Shudras, laborers. The Aryans also created a highly organized society that influenced the later development of Indian culture, literature, and philosophy. The belief systems, spiritual practices, and social norms that emerged during this period laid the foundation for the future development of the Indian subcontinent. Maurya and Gupta empires. Golden Ages India's history is filled with various powerful dynasties. The Maurya Empire, circa 322 to 185 BCE, was one of the first to unify large parts of India. The most famous Maurya ruler was Ashoka, who after his conversion to Buddhism embraced nonviolence, religious tolerance, and social welfare. Under Ashoka, India saw the spread of Buddhism to other parts of Asia. His reign was marked by the construction of stupas and pillars, many of which still stand today as symbols of his contributions to Indian culture. The Gupta Empire, which lasted from approximately 320 to 550 CE, is known as the Golden Age of India. During this time, India witnessed advancements in science, mathematics, and literature. Aryabhata, an ancient mathematician, made groundbreaking contributions to astronomy, and Kalidasa, a poet and playwright, created timeless works like Shakuntala. The Gupta period also saw the development of zero, which revolutionized mathematics across the world. India's cultural legacy was immortalized during this time, as India was a center for scholars, artists, and thinkers. Mughal Empire and the Taj Mahal. The Mughal Empire, which began in the early 16th century, further shaped India's rich cultural and architectural heritage. The Mughals, of Persian Turkic origin, created a powerful empire that spanned much of the Indian subcontinent. The greatest Mughal ruler, Akbar the Great, expanded the empire's borders and promoted religious tolerance and cultural synthesis. The most iconic monument of the Mughal era is the Taj Mahal, built by Emperor Shah Jahan in memory of his wife Mumtaz Mahal. This white marble mausoleum stands as a symbol of eternal love and artistic achievement. The Mughal Empire also contributed to the flourishing of arts, crafts, and architecture, leaving a lasting legacy that can still be seen in India today. Chapter 2: Colonial India and the Struggle for Independence. For centuries, India was the land of immense wealth, diverse cultures, and advanced civilizations. However, this golden era came to an end when European powers arrived in India during the 16th century. The Portuguese were the first to establish a foothold, followed by the Dutch, French, and British. India became a crucial part of the British Empire, providing raw materials, spices, and textiles. The British East India Company, initially a trading company, grew into a powerful force that controlled large parts of India. By the mid-19th century, the British had gained direct control over India, with Queen Victoria becoming the Empress of India. The British not only exploited India's resources, but also imposed their social and cultural norms. They introduced English as the official language, built railways, and established schools, many of which still serve as the foundation of India's modern education system. The revolt of 1857. By the mid-19th century, India had suffered greatly under British rule. The most significant uprising against British colonial rule occurred in 1857, known as the Indian Rebellion of 1857 or the Sepoy Mutiny. This rebellion, which began as a mutiny of Indian soldiers in the British Army, quickly spread across northern and central India. Though the revolt was suppressed, it marked the beginning of a nationwide movement for independence, Mahatma Gandhi and the Path to Freedom. The quest for independence was greatly influenced by the philosophy of Mahatma Gandhi, who became the leader of the Indian National Congress in the 1920s. Gandhi advocated for non-violent resistance to British rule, a concept he called satyagraha. He led mass movements like the Salt March in 1930 and the Quit India movement in 1942, both of which were instrumental in rallying the Indian population against British imperialism. Jawaharlal Nehru and Partition India's independence was finally achieved on August 15, 1947, after decades of struggle. However, the process was not without its challenges. The country was partitioned into two separate nations, India and Pakistan, based on religious lines. The partition caused widespread violence and the displacement of millions of people, leading to one of the largest human migrations in history. The birth of a new India, despite the challenges of partition and independence, India began the arduous task of nation building. Under the leadership of Jawaharlal Nehru, India became a democratic republic. The nation embraced a vision of social and economic equality and set out to improve education, agriculture, and healthcare for all its citizens. Chapter 3: Building the New Nation. The newly independent country of India faced a number of challenges, including poverty, illiteracy, and regional disparities. The first Prime Minister of India, Jawaharlal Nehru, understood that India needed to develop a strong and diversified economy to support its large population. Nehru's vision was focused on creating a modern India that could compete on the world stage. The role of planning and the economy. India of Nehru's key contributions to nation building was the establishment of a series of 5-year plans to guide India's economic development. These plans focused on the development of infrastructure, the industrialization of the country, and improving agriculture. Under Nehru's leadership, India saw the creation of key public sector industries, including steel plants, factories, and energy production facilities. However, India's economy faced significant hurdles. The country's agricultural sector remained underdeveloped, and much of the population still lived in rural areas. India also struggled with poverty, and millions of people did not have access to basic needs such as food, clean water, and shelter. Despite these challenges, Nehru remained committed to the idea that democracy and socialism would guide India toward prosperity. The Green Revolution and agricultural reforms. In the 1960s and 1970s, India introduced the Green Revolution, a series of agricultural reforms aimed at increasing food production. The introduction of high-yielding varieties of crops, such as wheat and rice, along with the use of chemical fertilizers, helped India move towards self-sufficiency in food production. This also allowed India to reduce its dependence on food imports and make significant strides toward solving its food security issues. Chapter 4: India in the 20th Century. In the second half of the 20th century, India underwent a process of industrialization which transformed the country's economy. The government focused on developing key industries such as steel, chemicals, and automobiles, and by the 1980s, India had become one of the largest producers of steel in the world. However, the country still faced many challenges, including high population growth, poverty, and corruption. The rise of the IT industry. In the 1990s, India witnessed the rise of a new economic sector that would dramatically change the country's fortunes: the information technology, IT industry. Cities like Bengaluru, Hyderabad, and Pune became known as major global hubs for IT services and software development. Indian companies such as Infosys, Wipro, and Tata Consultancy Services (TCS) began to offer software services to clients around the world, driving the growth of India's economy. The liberalization of India's economy in the early 1990s, marked by the economic reforms of then Finance Minister Manmohan Singh, led to the opening of Indian markets to foreign investments, further boosting the economy. India's economy grew at an average rate of over 7% per year for much of the 21st century, making it one of the fastest growing economies in the world. Chapter 5: The Rise of Modern India. As India entered the 21st century, it faced a unique set of opportunities and challenges. The rapid advancements in technology, the growth of the service sector, and the shift toward a globalized economy reshaped India in ways unimaginable a few decades earlier. The country's impressive growth trajectory made it one of the largest economies in the world, but the nation still had to contend with deep-seated problems of poverty, inequality, and regional disparities. Urbanization and the growth of megacities. By the early 2000s, India began to witness a massive migration of people from rural areas to cities. driven by the search for better opportunities in industry and services. The rise of megacities like Mumbai, Delhi, Bengaluru, and Chennai was both a reflection of India's economic growth and a source of many challenges. These cities became vibrant hubs for the tech industry, finance, and entertainment, but they also struggled with issues like overcrowding, pollution, and the growing divide between the wealthy and the poor. India's cities became symbols of modernity and economic opportunity, but they also represented the social and environmental toll of rapid growth. Slums grew alongside gleaming skyscrapers, and issues such as housing shortages, sanitation problems, and traffic congestion became part of daily life for millions of urban dwellers. While the country's economic success brought millions out of poverty, India's urban poor still faced immense challenges. The digital revolution and the rise of India's IT sector. The IT revolution became the cornerstone of India's transformation in the late 20th and early 21st centuries. The country quickly established itself as a global leader in information technology services, outsourcing, and software development. Bengaluru, also known as India's Silicon Valley, became the center of innovation, and companies like Infosys, Wipro, and Tata Consultancy Services, TCS, became household names around the world. India's young, educated, and tech-savvy workforce provided the perfect foundation for the expansion of IT services. The outsourcing boom helped India become the preferred destination for many international companies seeking to outsource their operations. In addition to traditional industries, India's tech sector began to foster a new generation of startups that were making waves in industries such as fintech, e-commerce, artificial intelligence, AI, and blockchain. The rise of the internet and smartphones also had a profound impact on the lives of Indians. The government's push for Digital India, combined with low-cost internet access, allowed millions of people, especially in rural areas, to access online education, e-commerce, and banking services. Challenges of modernity, education, healthcare, and inequality. Despite the country's economic growth, India faced critical challenges in education and healthcare. While cities like Bengaluru and Delhi boasted world-class educational institutions, millions of children in rural areas still lacked access to quality education. Schools were often overcrowded and underfunded, and the curriculum was out of touch with the evolving needs of the modern workforce. In response, the government introduced initiatives like Right to Education, ARTE, aiming to make education accessible to all children. India's healthcare system, though vastly improved, remained under strain. Although the country made tremendous strides in addressing diseases like polio, malaria, and HIV/AIDS, millions still lacked access to basic healthcare services. The gap in healthcare between urban and rural areas was stark, with urban areas boasting better infrastructure and facilities, while rural India continued to rely on outdated medical practices. India also faced a growing challenge of income inequality. While the wealthy urban elite benefited from economic liberalization, the rural poor continued to struggle with limited access to resources. The rise of the middle class was encouraging, but the gap between the haves and have-nots became more pronounced. Chapter 6: India on the Global Stage. India's rise as a global economic powerhouse was not just limited to its domestic growth. It also played an increasingly significant role on the world stage. Over the last few decades, India's foreign policy, diplomatic relations, and military strength have placed it among the most influential nations on earth. The role of India in international affairs. India's foreign policy has always been shaped by its desire to maintain its sovereignty while fostering strong relations with other nations. After gaining independence, India pursued a policy of non-alignment during the Cold War, aiming to avoid entanglement in the ideological battle between the United States and the Soviet Union. India became a leading voice in the non-aligned movement, which promoted global peace, economic development, and the rights of smaller nations. In the post-Cold War era, however, India's foreign policy underwent a significant shift. With the collapse of the Soviet Union and the rise of the United States as the dominant global power, India began to align itself more closely with the West, while also strengthening its ties with countries in Asia and Africa. India's growing military and economic power allowed it to become a key player in global issues ranging from climate change to terrorism. India's economy and trade relations. India's economy, as one of the world's largest, has made it an essential player in international trade. The country's trade relationships with the United States, China, and the European Union are crucial to global commerce. India's strategic location in South Asia also made it an important player in regional politics. The country's rising middle class and growing consumer market attracted global corporations. Companies like Apple, Amazon, and Google established a significant presence in India, seeking to tap into the burgeoning market of tech-savvy consumers. India's manufacturing sector, agriculture, and service industries also remained integral to the country's trade relations, as it continued to play a vital role in the global supply chain. The military and defense. India's military strength has been a defining factor in its global influence. The country is one of the largest military forces in the world, with advanced nuclear capabilities and a modernizing defense sector. India has maintained strong defense ties with several nations, including the United States, Russia, and Israel, to strengthen its position as a regional and global power. India has also taken an active role in peacekeeping operations under the United Nations and has contributed troops to various missions across the globe. In recent years, India's increasing military and strategic importance in the Indo-Pacific region has led to closer cooperation with countries like Japan, Australia, and the United States through the Quad grouping. Chapter 7: The Social Fabric of Modern India. India's diverse population of over 1.4 billion people represents a complex mosaic of cultures, religions, languages, and traditions. This diversity has been both a source of strength and a challenge, as the country has worked to create a unified national identity while respecting its regional and cultural differences. Religious diversity and secularism. India is home to a vast array of religious groups, with Hinduism, Islam, Christianity, Sikhism, Buddhism, and Jainism among the major religions practiced. The country has long embraced the principle of secularism, where the government does not favor any particular religion and guarantees freedom of worship. However, The coexistence of multiple religions has at times led to tensions, particularly between Hindus and Muslims. The government has made efforts to maintain religious harmony, though sporadic violence and communal unrest have challenged this ideal. The country's cultural festivals, such as Diwali, Eid, Christmas, and Baisakhi, are celebrated by millions of people across the nation and reflect the vibrant cultural heritage of India. Caste and social reform, the caste system, an ancient social hierarchy that divides people into various groups based on their birth, continues to be a sensitive and contentious issue in modern India. While the Constitution of India, drafted in 1950, outlawed untouchability and discrimination based on caste, the remnants of this system still persist in some areas, particularly in rural regions. Over the years, social reform movements and affirmative action policies have sought to address caste based inequalities. The government has implemented reservations, affirmative action, in education and government jobs for scheduled castes, SCs, scheduled tribes, STs, and other backward classes, OBCs, to uplift disadvantaged communities. However, caste based discrimination remains a challenge, and the country continues to struggle with the complexities of social inclusion. Chapter 8: India's Environment and Sustainability Challenges. As one of the most populous countries in the world, India faces significant challenges in balancing economic growth with environmental sustainability. The rapid pace of industrialization, urbanization, and population growth has put immense pressure on India's natural resources, including air, water, and land. Air pollution and climate change. One of the most pressing environmental issues facing India is air pollution. Cities like Delhi, Mumbai, and Kolkata have some of the worst air quality in the world, primarily due to vehicle emissions, industrial activities, and the burning of crop stubble. The government has implemented various policies to address air pollution, including the introduction of cleaner fuels, stricter vehicle emission standards, and initiatives to reduce industrial emissions. However, more needs to be done to address the root causes of air pollution and its adverse impact on public health. India is also highly vulnerable to the impacts of climate change, including rising temperatures, extreme weather events, and water scarcity. The Indian Ocean and Himalayan glaciers are particularly susceptible to the effects of global warming, which threatens to displace millions of people in vulnerable regions. The country is working on initiatives to reduce its carbon emissions, promote renewable energy, and adapt to climate change through programs like the National Action Plan on Climate Change. Water scarcity and agriculture. Water scarcity is another critical environmental issue in India. The country's agricultural sector, which employs a large portion of the population, is heavily dependent on irrigation. Yet many regions are facing water shortages due to over-extraction, contamination, and inadequate infrastructure. The government has implemented several schemes to address water conservation, including the Jal Jeevan Mission, which aims to provide tap water to every household by 2024. Chapter 9: The Rise of India's Middle Class and Consumer Culture. In the 21st century, One of the most notable social transformations in India has been the rise of the middle class. As the economy has expanded, millions of Indians have entered the middle income bracket, dramatically shifting the country's consumption patterns, lifestyle choices, and aspirations. The growth of the Indian middle class. The middle class in India has grown exponentially in the past few decades, fueled by rapid economic growth, better access to education, and an expanding job market in industries such as technology, finance, healthcare, and retail. In 2000, the middle class made up around 20% of the population, but by 2025, this figure is expected to rise to nearly 50%. The middle class has become the engine of the country's economy, driving consumption across various sectors. For many, this economic transformation has meant access to better housing, consumer electronics, cars, and luxury goods. With increasing disposable income, more Indians are choosing to spend on education, entertainment, and travel. Global brands such as Apple, Nike, and Samsung have established a significant presence in Indian cities, catering to the growing demand for high-quality goods. The impact of consumerism on society is the rise of the middle class. India has seen a surge in consumer culture. Modern shopping malls have replaced traditional bazaars, and e-commerce has revolutionized the way people shop. Platforms like Flipkart, Amazon India, and Snapdeal have made online shopping a preferred choice for millions. The rise of digital payment systems and mobile wallets such as Paytm and Google Pay has further facilitated this shift, with cashless transactions becoming increasingly popular. While consumerism has brought prosperity to many, it has also raised concerns about the environmental impact of excessive consumption. The growth in demand for products has led to greater pressure on natural resources, leading to environmental degradation. India's rapid urbanization has also resulted in the loss of green spaces, overcrowding in cities, and increased waste generation. Additionally, the rise of consumerism has contributed to a cultural shift, with younger generations more inclined to embrace globalized trends over traditional values. Rural-urban divide and economic inequality. Despite the rise of a thriving middle class, economic inequality remains a major concern. While urban centers have benefited greatly from the country's economic boom, rural areas continue to face persistent poverty. The migration from rural areas to cities in search of better opportunities has created a growing divide between the urban rich and rural poor. Rural India still grapples with inadequate infrastructure, poor health care, and limited educational opportunities. Agricultural distress, including poor crop yields, low incomes, and the lack of access to modern farming techniques, remains a significant challenge in many rural areas. Additionally, rural populations are often excluded from the benefits of urbanization, as many still do not have access to reliable electricity, clean drinking water, or internet connectivity. The government's efforts to bridge this divide include the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, which aims to provide affordable housing for the rural poor, and the Swachh Bharat mission, which focuses on sanitation and cleanliness. However, the gap between urban and rural India continues to be a major area of concern. Chapter 10: The New Challenges and Opportunities for India. As India moves further into the 21st century, it faces both incredible opportunities and significant challenges. The country is at a crossroads, with the potential to become a global leader in various fields, from technology to green energy, but also with the responsibility to address pressing issues such as poverty, climate change, and social inequality. India's technological future, a global power in innovation. India's technology sector has emerged as a global leader, and the country's future lies in its ability to harness its technological potential. India is already a powerhouse in information technology and software development, but the next frontier for the country is artificial intelligence, AI, robotics, space exploration, and biotechnology. The government has rolled out initiatives like the Digital India program, which aims to digitally empower citizens, promote e-commerce, and create a more connected India. India is also becoming a key player in startup culture, with a growing number of tech entrepreneurs working on innovations that have the potential to change industries globally. Fintech startups like Paytm and Razorpay, along with companies in sectors like e-commerce, clean energy, and education technology, are putting India on the map as a hub for global innovation. Sustainability and green energy. India's role in combating climate change. One of the most significant challenges facing India is climate change. The country's rapid urbanization and industrialization have resulted in heavy carbon emissions, air pollution, and an unsustainable reliance on fossil fuels. As a result, India faces frequent natural disasters, such as droughts, floods, and heat waves, which are expected to worsen due to climate change. However, India has also become a leader in the global push for green energy. The country is investing heavily in solar power, wind energy, and electric vehicles to reduce its carbon footprint. The Indian government has set ambitious targets to generate 500 gigawatts of renewable energy by 2030 and aims to reduce its carbon intensity, the amount of carbon emitted per unit of GDP, by 30 to 35% by 2030. India's transition to sustainable development is a critical aspect of its long-term growth. Social progress and inclusion. A more equitable society. While India's economic rise is undeniable, social inequality remains a persistent issue. The government and civil society have made significant strides in improving the lives of marginalized groups, but much work remains. India must continue to focus on ensuring equal access to education, healthcare, and employment opportunities for all its citizens, regardless of caste, religion, gender, or region. Women's empowerment has been a focal point in recent years, with initiatives like Beti Bachao Beti Padhao, Save the Girl Child, Educate the Girl Child, and Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana, which provides women in rural areas with access to clean cooking gas. However, despite these efforts, women in India still face challenges related to gender-based violence, discrimination, and unequal pay. The government has also taken steps to improve the lives of scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, and other backward classes through affirmative action policies and reservations in education and government jobs. Yet, the country must continue to address caste-based discrimination and ensure greater social mobility for disadvantaged communities. Conclusion: India's path forward. As India stands at the threshold of a new era, it is clear that the nation's journey is one of both promise and peril. The country's remarkable economic growth, technological advancements, and expanding global influence paint an optimistic picture of the future. However, the challenges India faces, such as poverty, inequality, climate change, and social fragmentation, remain formidable. The India of tomorrow will be shaped by its ability to balance economic development with social inclusion, environmental sustainability, and the preservation of its cultural heritage. It will require a concerted effort from both the government and the people to ensure that the benefits of growth are shared equitably, that the environment is protected, and that all citizens have the opportunity to thrive in this fast-changing world. India's future is a testament to the resilience of its people, the strength of its institutions, and the limitless potential that lies ahead. With its eyes firmly set on the future, India is poised to play a central role in the shaping of the global order, offering lessons on how to navigate the complex realities of the 21st century. The journey continues, full of hope, ambition, and challenges yet to be overcome.